If you're at all like me, you no doubt saw the recent trailer for Alita Battle Angel, knew nothing about it, but were immediately intrigued. So I set out to find out more about it, where it came from, the concept, and more about the movie. And I did. So I'm bringing that to you. If you have questions about who is Alita Battle Angel, why does she have such big eyes, where did this come from, and just what is this story about, this is the right place for you. Thanks for pressing play, everybody. I'm Jesse, you're watching JLS Comics, and this channel is all about comic books, movies, TV shows, video games, anime, manga, you know, all the fun stuff. Today we're going to be talking about Alita Battle Angel. There's a couple pieces to it here. There is manga, there's an OVA, and there's an upcoming movie that I want to tell you about as well. So we're going to bring all that together, and then once you are finished here, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of who she is, what it is, and maybe what to expect from the movie as well. The movie releases here in the United States on July 20th of 2018. It was written by both James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez, but directed by Robert Rodriguez. James Cameron gave it to Robert to direct so that he could have room to work on Avatar, which is another Fox property. James Cameron first learned about the concept of Alita Battle Angel from his friend and fellow director Guillermo del Toro. This was in the late 90s. He brought it to Fox Studios. They ended up buying the rights all the way back in 1999. Next year, year 2000, they opted the rights for the film. And there's been so many delays ever since then, whether it was James Cameron working on Avatar or just the fact that they wanted to wait for the technology to catch up to where it would really do the story justice. We finally get into development, casting calls. There was some really great people that went out for the role of Alita, Zendaya, Bella Thorne, and some others read for the role before eventually went to Rosa Salazar. But it's not just Rosa that makes this film come to life. There's an all-star cast, including folks such as Jennifer Connelly, Christopher Waltz, Michelle Rodriguez, Ed Skrein, Mahershala Ali. You can see the list goes on. Really, really great casting choices if you ask me. So one of the burning questions that folks have on their mind is, what is up with those eyes? Why are her eyes so big? It was actually an idea from Robert Rodriguez, who really wanted to bring to life something that James Cameron had intended from the beginning, and that was one of the reasons why they had to wait for the technology to catch up. They really wanted to create a photo-realistic version of manga eyes. That's something that really has been absent in adaptations like Ghost in the Shell, like Death Note. They did not have those manga eyes, and that's something that is very quintessentially the manga style. So Robert Rodriguez actually said that he really wanted to honor the tradition and see that look standing next to any human character. To have the right person to emote behind it was really essential, and that's why they picked Rosa Salazar. Her origins are in the film, and you understand why she looks that way. And Robert goes on to say, if the eyes are the windows to the soul, we have some pretty big windows. So there is lots of controversy around that. Does it translate? So I get the proof of concept that he's trying to go for there, but does it translate? And my other question for you is, why is she the only one? If that was what they wanted to do, and I guess the focus is supposed to be on her, and we'll get into that in a second, but she is the only one, as far as we can tell from the trailer, that has these eyes. But I do like what she says in the trailer itself. Does it bother you? She asked in the trailer. So it's supposed to make you feel something. That's the best type of art does, and it really does. So this film got its roots and its life in 1999, but the story of Alita goes back much farther than that. 1990, in fact, was when Yukito Kishiro first came up with the concept and put it into the pages of a Japanese magazine. At the time, it was not called Alita. It was called Gunma, which is a compound of two kanji characters, Gun and Mu, which mean gun dream. It's spelled Gunnm, but it's pronounced Ganmu. And it's pretty interesting. The reason he came up with gun dream was that he had an original concept. It was called Rainmaker, and he was working with another guy named Mr. Tamita. That was his editor. Really liked this character. She was in this story. Teferis was in there. What is the scrapyard? You know, the iron scrapyard city. She was grown up in there, and she was actually a tuned agent. Lou was there as an operator as well. She had a gun, and the climax from that original story was the same as the Ouroboros episode, where she receives a psychological attack, and that's where gun dreams comes from. So that's why it was called Gunma, based on that original concept. The manga was brought to the United States in 1992 by Viz Media, translated, and she became Gully, but it was Alita Battle Angel. Gully is the name of the cat that Dr. Ito has that passes shortly before he meets her. And then later on, there was an OVA, which is an original video animation two-parter that went direct to home video. There's been multiple manga that still continues now that Kodansha has bought the rights, like Mars Chronicle is a sequel. It's the last one, I believe, of the entire story. It's technically a sequel to The Last Order, but it's really a prequel because it goes into the details of her life from before, like when she lived on Mars and she was a really young girl. So one of the other things here, the name changed from Ganmu to Battle Angel Alita, and then when James Cameron wanted it, the producer made it Alita Battle Angel. He jokingly said James Cameron only does TNA videos. Not what you think. That would be Titanic, Avatar, Aliens, True Lies. His movies have to start with either a T or an A. So he changed it to Alita Battle Angel to fit within that. So I think that's pretty funny. The movie itself is based on the first 4 books of a 9-book set from Viz Media, actually. They're black and white books too. Really great artistry in there. It's all done by Akira Kishiro. But it's going to, the movie that is, include a game called Motorball, which came out in some of the later stories. So even though it's live action, Alita herself will be CG. So now that we've talked about where it came from, what to expect from the movie, where you can look for some reading material, what is the story and who is she? The story takes place in the 26th century. It's futuristic, sci-fi, cyberpunk, all the best of that world. And to really understand it, you have to set up the world that they live in first of all. It is an area, it's revealed later exactly where it is, but it's basically somewhere on Earth, far in the future, the 26th century. It's later revealed, as I said, but we have a giant floating city, Teferis. It's the place where, you know, it's beautiful. That's where the rich go. That's where then the well-off go. And down below that is where they throw all their trash, all their scraps, all their junk. And it is Scrapyard City, and there's a whole bunch of people that have been cast off from Teferis, the floating city. There's people that just live down there. It's hard, it's gritty, it's dirty life, and it is really, really difficult for people. It's called Teferis in the anime. In the OVA, it's called Salem. But there's a guy, his name is Dr. Daisuke Ito. He's a cyber doctor. For the folks to live in this scrapyard city, they really have to, at this time, add all these cybernetic parts to themselves and kind of enhance themselves with cybernetics and electronics. So there's all these cyborgs running around. There's mutant people running around. There's a guy who feeds off of endorphins to fuel his body because he is just so amped up on his enhancements. He eats brains of people, and it's lawless there. Well, not technically. There's no official police force. There is a factory, and that is actually kind of controlling everything. It's run by Vector. That's who Mahershala Ali is going to be. But they send people out. They put a price on people's heads if they're criminals, people who just kind of deserve to be taken off the streets. So they call hunter warriors, which are basically bounty hunters, and they go out, they find these people, they serve their own justice. And at the same time, they're also kind of taking all these scraps that have come down, fixing things up, and then sending them back up to the floating city to be reused. Vector uses the promise of going up to that promised land to kind of manipulate and use people. He does that to Yugo, he does that to Chirin, kind of just says, oh, you know, if you do this for me, I'll get you that much closer to getting up to Teferis, up to Salem. I won't tell you what happens, but people are disappointed in the end because of that. We have the giant scrap piles. Daisuke Ito, he's kind of digging around for parts. He does repairs for these cyborg people. He installs parts for them, replaces parts, and he stumbles across intact head of a young cyborg girl. It's in this giant scrap heap, and he goes, oh, I gotta have this. So he takes her in, he finds a body for her, he finds these parts, he has tons of parts, and kind of gives her a body. They were made to believe, at least from the manga, that the body parts come from a streetwalker. A very beautiful streetwalker. We see it in a couple of the panels or a couple of the scenes from the OVA. And at the same time we see that, we learn that there is a killer out there beheading young women. So Alita thinks that it is Dr. Ito who's doing that. This guy took me in, but he's killing people. What's going on? So she goes out after him and kind of follows him and learns that he's actually on the hunt for the killer. There ends up being a big fight and because they encounter one of the killers, the cyborgs, and out come her hidden skills. She has this amazing fighting ability called Panzerkunst, which is a martial art that was developed to be in space with zero gravity. And she likes it. It awakens something in her. She finally realizes she learned something about herself. She wants to become a hunter warrior herself, bounty hunter. There's the brain-eating guy I talked about. His name's Gruisha. But unfortunately, shortly thereafter, there was a bar fight and her body of the prostitute body parts ended up being destroyed. Now, Dr. Ito actually had a hidden area in his basement where he had found some earlier body parts of some ancient battle warriors that he had just stored there out of the way, and he gave her those parts, his ancient battle warrior cyborg body. She had fallen down from Teferis as an angel, and now she's got the parts to be the battle angel. And she just goes on to learn more about herself, and ultimately that is what this is about. It's about her learning who she is. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey from going from nothing in a scrap heap to realizing that it doesn't matter. You can actually make a difference in the world. This story, the plot really revolves around character development. Yukito Kishiro actually said something about what he wants to depict in Alita. He said the scrapyard is a world where every value system is broken down. There are no legends, no myths, no ideologies, and we're living in a world kind of like that right now. And the important thing is not to criticize the rights and the wrongs of it, but to merely see it for what it is, the contrast between inner naivety and harsh reality. Once aware of that, the struggle is not to be nihilistic or cynical, but to live on. That's not a flight of whimsy, but the force of will, and the true meaning of battle to maintain individuality. And that's what I wanted to depict in Alita. That came from Yukito Kishiro way back in 1995. So hopefully, with James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, $200 million, a love of the project behind it, this should be finally a good Western adaptation of a anime or of a manga. And ultimately, where some of the others have fallen short in their superficiality, this will dive deep into the character-driven nature of the story. We get to learn about who she is. It will really be honoring its roots instead of disregarding them. It'll be truer, it'll be deeper to the story, and I really like that. So because of that, I think this movie will do rather well. I think it will be a good adaptation, and I'm greatly looking forward to it. From what I've learned, there's a lot of people who would agree with me as well. So like I said, the story will basically take place, the spine of the story, I'm using air quotes, you can't see me, will be from the first 4 books. And that's basically where she is the hunter warrior. We don't get to see her right now as part of anything else, like the Tuned, for example, which is a group of warriors that have a lot of battle armor and weaponry and what have you. That'll be later. But James Cameron did say he was trying to develop this as a franchise alongside Avatar. So assuming this movie does well, and everything points to the fact that it will, that we'll see more of Alita in the future. So that's what I got for you guys. That is Alita Battle Angel, what I've learned about it, what I like about it, and what I am hoping for from the movie. So let me know what you think down below. If you have anything to add for folks who are listening to this and then reading the comments, please do add that. And if it's your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Love to have you here as part of the JLS Comics family. And if you like this content or anything like it, feel free to hit the like button, and that will tell me that I should do more content like this. That's it. This is Jesse with JLS Comics, and I'll see you in the next video.